up on the show, a report on the country's manufacturing sector.
Because it's a very high-cost environment, it's very hard to attract new investment or to expand current investments.
We'll look at that story a bit later on in the show. But first, the third Papua New Guinea Advantage International Summit concluded today in Port Moresby. The two-day summit, which focuses entirely on the promotion of business and investment in PNG, was attended by partners from both local and international, entrepreneurs, business representatives, industry experts, as well as various government ministers. Business PNG reporter and journalist Dennis Herrera with this report.
The Papua New Guinea Advantage 2013 International Investment Summit kicked off yesterday at the Gateway Hotel in Port Moresby. The two-day summit, which ended today, saw Papua New Guinean business executives engaging promisingly with international investors. The summit was dedicated entirely to the promotion of business and investment in PNG. The opening day saw Prime Minister Peter O'Neill launching the summit, reassuring international investors that PNG provides a great climate to invest in.
I want to give you today an unqualified assurance that not as our political environment has never been more stable or more certain than it is today, but that stability is and will continue as far as we can see into the future. Our government today is the largest parliamentary majority in our country.
The Prime Minister also launched the PNG Investors Manual, a handbook for investing and doing business in the country. The manual was co-published by the Port Moresby Chamber of Commerce and Industry, IPA, and the Asian Development Bank. NCD Governor Powis Pakop officially welcomed investors at the summit, assuring them that the crime rate in the capital has dropped compared to past years.
But I want to assure you all that Port Moresby is changing, Papua New Guinea is changing. We have, over the last 5 years, managed to reduce opportunity crime by 60%. Port Moresby is not what it used to be or what some of you, the media, may have been saying in the past. Today I can assure you that it's relatively safe to do business and on a personal security level.
Prime Minister Peter O'Neill said PNG has a stable government and is working to meet the needs of the people as well as providing a conducive environment for investors. He said there are already infrastructure developments underway to build and strengthen economic hubs in the country.
Recently, I outlined the government's plan to create a number of economic hubs, adding to our existing major centers of Port Moresby and Lae, together with Mount Hagen. In addition, we have identified Kokopo as the major tourism hub.
Tim Harcourt from Australia, known as the airport economist because of the amount of time he spends in the air, told summit participants that PNG needs to invest in human capital.
We find that in Japan, they're running out of husbands, so Mrs. Hashimoto and her cohort will be important in the future. In China, they're running out of wives because of the one-child policy, so that will be pretty difficult, and I can't see a China-Japan free trade agreement for marriage, whilst in countries like India and PNG they have a very young population, and that's very much in those economies' favour, provided the human development is invested wisely.
The internationally renowned economist, in presenting a view on where the world economy is travelling, pointed out that PNG has got opportunities to grow its economy. He said PNG has a younger population compared to many other countries in the Asia-Pacific region, thus having an advantage to move its economy forward. Meanwhile, Bank of PNG Governor Loy Bakani briefed the summit of PNG's economic status and plans for the future.
You cannot rely on the mineral sector all the time. We have to start to diversify the economy and focus on non-mineral, especially agriculture. And it's positive. It's very good news that the government is now looking at tourism also in support of agriculture sector to sustain the growth in the economy into the future.
The summit showcased specific areas of opportunity where international and domestic businesses could contribute to the development of PNG. As vast business opportunities arise in PNG, there are questions of whether Papua New Guinea can fully utilize these opportunities and interact effectively with the international community.
More on the two-day summit on next week's show, but coming up after the break. A report on the country's manufacturing sector. Stay with us. Unlike other major economic sectors in the country, the manufacturing sector has not received much consideration from the government to encourage its growth and development. The manufacturing sector has remained an underdog in the country's economy, but actually it is a silent contributor to the country's economy, employing 25% of the total workforce with the potential to expand its footprint provided the presence of a conducive environment and a proper framework. Though small compared to manufacturing in world standards and seemingly insignificant compared to other economic sectors in the country, it certainly has a direct impact on consumers. This effect no one can deny. Tonight, we'll be looking at the opportunities, the constraints, as well as some of the developments in Papua New Guinea's manufacturing sector.
The manufacturing sector in PNG may appear overshadowed by other major economic sectors, but actually, it is a steady and growing contributor to the country's economic growth, employing a quarter of the nation's total workforce, with its contribution to gross domestic product estimated at between 6 and 12%. Generally, the manufacturing sector in PNG is small compared to global standards. Beverage production, food and tobacco processing are the main manufacturing activities in the country. There are also a number of manufacturers of light industry goods, chemicals and textile. Downstream processing of local beef, tuna and mackerel is done here as well. In a recent survey, the Manufacturers Council of PNG discovered that more than 60 of its members were planning greater investment into the future.
All of these companies, a lot of members are making investments, particularly over this last couple of years, based on the confidence in the new government and their commitment to addressing some of the things that are driving these high costs in business, i.e. priority infrastructure.
There are just about 80 members of the Manufacturing Council of PNG. Some are multinational companies who manufacture their popular brands in PNG. ExxonMobil Limited is one multinational company that manufactures paint in PNG.
Once the raw materials are being brought in, we do the manufacturing. In the process of manufacturing, the most important area preparing accurate measuring of chemicals, including the powder, and after the batch card has been raised through the operations department. And this is where the heart of the paint production is here.
Multinational companies have factories established in different countries in order to cut down export costs and to cater for demand in the country they operate in.
Our production capacity is plenty, but we are always expanding within sales, marketing and logistics, and there are lots of opportunities there in the future.
Apart from multinational companies, there are PNG-based manufacturers who operate under tough economic conditions, but yet strive to satisfy consumer needs in the country.
We export throughout the South Pacific and to the northern parts of Australia at the moment, and we see that as there's an opportunity with more Papua New Guineans being in those areas. There's demand for our products being there, as long as, and as well, that our brand is recognised for its quality.
Another major manufacturing activity in PNG is tuna processing. This covers the fishing, loining and canning of tuna. PNG has recently opened the region's biggest fish processing plant in the industrial city of Lae, following the investment by Thai Union, the world's biggest fish processor. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill says the opening of the 80 million kina majestic seafood plant could create close to 7,000 jobs. National Fisheries Authority is confident that PNG's tuna industry has the potential to become a big player on the global stage. Most manufactured products in PNG are for internal consumption and import replacement. Much of PNG's manufactured produce is aimed at a domestic consumer market that is growing rapidly. Though from a low base, many local manufacturers are struggling to meet demand. ICCC says the main reason why PNG manufactured products are not exported is because they are at a comparative disadvantage in terms of price, as PNG-made products will be very expensive in overseas markets.
Businesses in other countries as well as businesses operating in PNG are aware of this and hesitate to venture into exporting PNG-made products, as that would not be a profitable business for them.
Only a few products are now exported, accompanying mineral and agricultural exports. Some companies like SP Brewery have been the leading manufacturer of beer since before independence. It has competed in the international market and has remained a producer of quality beer.
One of the secrets to our success has been our commitment to quality products in our time here in Papua New Guinea, and that no doubt comes through our relationship with the Heineken internationally as the major shareholder in the company, and the quality of the products that we're able to offer our consumers. We export throughout the South Pacific and to the northern parts of Australia at the moment, and we see that as there's an opportunity with more Papua New Guineans being in those areas. There's demand for our products being there, as long as, and as well, that our brand is recognised for its quality.
According to the Manufacturing Council of PNG, the level of penetration of PNG products in overseas markets is not significant.
We're fortunate that we have a very large domestic market in Papua New Guinea, which helps us to ride out some of those shocks. I think fortunately and also unfortunately, we have a domestic market which is used to relatively high prices. We can also remain competitive by leveraging our preferential access arrangements, so things like the interim economic partnership agreement with the European Union allows us to get agricultural based products, marine products, fish, into the EU with a duty-free, quota-free concession, which means for our competitors, such as the Asian states that are canning our fish, we get a 24–25% sort of margin over their product because they have to pay for that duty.
The companies that are successfully exporting overseas face multiple challenges, including product testing onshore, turnaround time in export documentation, biosecurity, and other regulatory issues. Once infrastructure and internal regulatory constraints are addressed, the export potential for a number of other food and lifestyle-based products will see strong growth. According to ICCC, selling prices of goods and services are determined by the sellers, who factor in operational costs of the business and the percentage of markup the business decides to put onto their products or service.
I think one of the issues is that because it's a very high cost environment, it's very hard to attract new investment or to expand current investments.
The Commission is working to secure improvements in efficiency of a number of essential services which should reduce the cost of manufacturing in PNG and lead to lower prices.
Professor Manoka also said that the tariffs of some goods currently imposed by the government are basically to protect the locally manufactured products, although it also raises revenue for the government.
Up next, the costs involved. We continue our review of the manufacturing sector when we come back. If you've just joined us, you're watching Business PNG, and tonight we bring you a report on the country's manufacturing sector. Competition against PNG-made goods is quite strong. This is due to the availability of cheap overseas imports. Contrabands and counterfeits, even though they're cheaper, these goods are still a direct competition to PNG-made goods.
The Manufacturing Council of PNG says production costs are high due to poor infrastructure, distribution costs, telecommunications, security, and so on. This has led to competition between imported and PNG-made products.
One of the things that we need to do in Papua New Guinea is to have an environment in which it is profitable to do business, where people can start from the SME sector through to a large corporation in areas where we have all of the resources required to undertake that activity, but we should be able to do that in a manner in which we can make money, and if we can do it so that we can make money, hopefully we can also be competitive against other markets.
ICCC also shared the same comment.
If the operational costs for PNG manufactured products are higher than in the country producing the imported products, even though imported goods are produced overseas and incur significant costs of transporting them into the country, the locally produced goods will be more expensive. The cost for all production inputs such as land, building, fuel, materials, electricity, port services, water, etc., the list is quite long, are relatively high in PNG compared to other countries that produce competing products.
Competition would reduce the costs of goods and services in the country as it drives efficiency in business, which in turn drives prices down, increases quality of products and services standards, spurs innovation, and increases consumer choice. Counterfeit and contraband products are also a concern for some manufacturers in PNG. It also impacts on the consumer's choice.
The counterfeit and the contraband product. What I mean by contraband is goods coming across the border, not paying duties and the required excise taxes on these particular products. They have definitely affected our sales, mainly because these rogue traders don't actually pay any import duties or excise, and therefore they can sell their products at a much lower price than the legitimate businesses can. When you calculate the lost excise, import duties, GST and corporate taxes on that sort of volume, government's losing in the vicinity of around 100 million kina per annum.
ICCC says the responsibility for actual counterfeit goods lies with the Investment Promotions Authority and the owners of the intellectual property.
The responsibility for actual counterfeit goods lies with the IPA and the owners of intellectual property. The Commission's consumer protection powers are quite limited in addressing counterfeit goods, and this will be looked at in the course of reviewing the Independent Consumer and Competition Commission Act. My number one priority performance agreement that I signed with the Minister is the review of the ICCC Act. There's a lot of shortcomings in the Act, and we need to strengthen the Act.
ICCC says not all goods are counterfeit, as they are genuine products produced overseas. They are called parallel imports and are not illegal. If they are cheaper than their local counterparts, it is because the cost of producing them in their country of origin is much cheaper. Manufacturing sector currently employs 25% of the nation's total workforce. The tuna processing plant in Lae is also projected to employ 7,000 people. Unlike other sectors, there is potential for a lot more employment opportunities for the people. Manufacturing sector is also responsible for permanent and long-term job opportunities, as it does not depend on the life expectancy of a non-renewable resource.
Directly, our payroll is about 400 people, but then indirectly, there's probably another 1,000 that are involved in different jobs, involved with contractors working for the brewery. Much of our work, transport and all of that is, and logistics, is all outsourced to Papua New Guinean businesses. So the real impact is a major multiplying effect there as well.
So all in all, we are around 100 persons, and more than 90% of those are nationals.
We employed 225 staff nationally, of which 97% are nationals. We only have 5 expatriates here.
Stay tuned. Our report on the manufacturing sector continues after the break. Welcome back. At present, the country's economy is riding on the waves of the resource sector, and as the resource sector booms, business opportunities continue to grow. But can the manufacturing sector become an alternative sector? The opportunities, suggestions, and the issues have been highlighted, and some worth considering, especially when there is a need to expand this sector.
For every product, there is cost, and the cost impacts on every consumer. The common reaction from an ordinary consumer when choosing a product is to compare the price and at times settle for the cheaper imported product. This is because PNG-made products cost a bit more due to the cost of production. The pricing of PNG-made products is an aspect that ICCC is reviewing.
ICCC is a member of the International Competition Network. It's also a member of International Consumer Protection and Enforcement Network. And what we've learned is that generally competition legislation is reviewed every 10 years so that it's up to date with what is happening, the developments, because we live in a dynamic world, not a static world. And so it's now time to review the Act. There's some weaknesses in the Act that we've identified.
The government needs to help lessen the social and economic impacts that pose as risks for competitive manufacturers potentially being forced out of the market, which could lead to unemployment and social unrest.
So hopefully going forward we can have an Act that can make the Commission's work more effective so that in the end what we want to achieve is we don't want an economy where certain sectors of the economy are too concentrated because they then develop market power, and they can easily abuse that market power at the expense of the economy and the consumers in general.
With sufficient infrastructure through government assistance, the cost of doing business can be reduced, resulting in cheap quality goods for PNG consumers. It is a shared concern by most manufacturers that the cost of production in PNG is very high.
I think the government has a number of favourable policies to encourage exports from Papua New Guinea. The high cost of operation, of course, in Papua New Guinea itself discourages people setting up for exporting. But we've been here a long time, we understand that, and we continue to work our ways around it.
Producing in PNG is very expensive compared with in neighboring Asian countries. Infrastructural cost, the one you just mentioned, like water, electricity, is very high here. Also the cost for security, shipping, labor cost is high. So that is of course an issue. But electricity and water are high cost in our production, and if you could reduce them, that would impact positively on our costing.
The biggest issue for us is the inconsistent and irregular providing of those services, especially power, water and the telecommunications. The law and order situation doesn't help because we incur significant costs to ensure our products get distributed around the country safely as well.
Currently, PNG concentrates in manufacturing food products and light industry goods. There is possibility of manufacturing heavy industrial and mechanical goods.
And that winds up this edition of Business PNG. To access our programs online, log on to www.mtv.com.pg. Also, remember to send us your feedback via Facebook or email. Until then, I'm Leanne Jarari. Bye for now.